All right, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. We're here early. So let us see. Today I do want to talk about complexities of relationships. And not really for any kind of a negative kind of perspective necessarily. Just more so just some things that are kind of coming into my mind, but I haven't really organized this too much in my head. Sometimes I think it's better for me to talk about things when I don't have it fully organized, and then other times I realize maybe I shouldn't have hit record quite so soon. Yeah, we're here. It's early in the morning on a Thursday, early in official summer. It's Pride Month. I'm looking forward to this summer. We have had some Rona situations, in the last, since 2020, 2021, like, do I even need to say it, but, cases have been spiking, so my social life has been dwindling, and I notice, the more I'm disconnected from, the social stuff, the more I'm likely to kind of be, podcasting and things, because I'm inside. I'm not out partying. I'm not out doing much. And the recent plans I had, like for LA Pride, that got canceled. I had some plans on Juneteenth with some friends who were visiting from San Diego up in WeHo. That got canceled. And so, well, not really canceled. It got postponed till later in the day. And then I was like, well, we were supposed to meet at 9, and I didn't want to, when people are like hungover and stuff, I don't really want to wait around for them to tell me when they're feeling okay. I'd rather just get on with my morning. So I was like already kind of like pushing it. This was on Juneteenth. I was already kind of pushing it, and I was like, I'm already kind of tired. So I don't know if I really want to make that effort to go out and day drink, because I wasn't really going to drink anyways. It's like, in LA, I drive. I don't really Uber to Hollywood. Like, that's far. It's like really far. So I was like, let me just not do that. Especially because the drive can be about an hour. So I was just not really, in the mood to do all that. But, yeah, things like that, like events, I've been thinking about events coming and going. I'm going to be at one of the Black Pride festivals this weekend. And just, I think people know kind of my dating situation. I'm kind of like a serial dater. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself like monogamous necessarily. Like, I don't require monogamy. That's not like a requirement. It's easier, especially in today's like social structure of things. It's just easier, and especially because I was between the two cities for some time. Now I'm like more stably in one city. It's a little bit easier, to just be like not quite held to one standard of just, like dating one person at a time. Again, I'm not into cheating, I'm not into dishonesty, but it's kind of challenging to kind of feel out, a dating situation because, at least on my end, I don't really have like a specific end goal. Like as far as like life partners, things like that, like I do think, that's something I could want, that I would find like something that I would want to, you know, try in my life. Not assuming that it wouldn't go well, but I would like to see how that would go. I I think, I don't think I have like a whole lot of like super negative qualities. But definitely, there's work to be done that I do try to do. And then, there's also positive qualities, things that I never really noticed too much in myself, but kind of themes that I hear people mentioning to me. But that's kind of more so what I wanted to talk about was just kind of that approach to how the negative and the positive aspects of oneself, either for your own viewpoints of your own self or other people's viewpoints of you, or how you perceive other people viewing you, how those things are, like what they actually contribute to with like relationships, with building relationships, with having relationships, kind of what that looks like. So I will say, I would say if I started with like negative things, like I can definitely be too direct. I can definitely be just kind of like I do have a lazy side to me, but and kind of like a negative, like I can see the negative in things very easily, and I notice it though because I sense it, I feel it, and I'm like, oh, like this doesn't feel good. But sometimes it's just hard to be like in a good, happy mood. And I know because most people, when they see me, and most of the time when I'm socializing and interacting, they see me in this like happy mood, easygoing, I'm not really sarcastic with people. I'm kind of a gentle soul, kind of a teddy bear type person. Like I'm really not that, hard to be around, but I'm definitely hard to get to know. I definitely shut down. Like I definitely tend to be quite, I don't want to call it like a blank slate, but kind of like just, kind of like not too, what do you call it? It's not a blank slate, but kind of, I'm drinking some bulletproof coffee that I made. I wouldn't call it a blank slate, but kind of more like disconnected, maybe. I can be kind of like disconnected. I'll be there with people. I think sometimes, especially when I'm like nervous or just kind of like in my head about something, and I'm hanging out with my friends or hanging out with people, sometimes I'm just like not really completely engaged in the setting, if we're like at a bar or a club and I'm like totally in my head and would rather be like journaling or reading or like making music or something productive and creative, and then I'm like at a club, like, or like, day drinking with friends or something, and it's like sometimes I'm like, I'm not really getting a lot out of this. You know, and I do like having a lot of like introspective time. And I do try to be, honest about things. I do value honesty and trust and trustworthiness, but sometimes, I mean, there are things that I would say that I've embellished before about, like, maybe like an event that happened, or like a situation or something that I've kind of noticed myself, like, kind of making a story seem more than what it really was. Or even like kind of more like, what do you call it, kind of like a protective, like, okay, so for example, yeah, I've been watching The Sopranos with my mom. I've watched that series like I don't know how many freaking times, but I started rewatching it with my mom. And then in season 4, there was some scene in season 4, spoiler alert, where Tony was, he's a married man. He's sleeping with this, you know, person that, this Russian lady who's she's got one leg and came from poverty, and initially she was helping with his mother, like the caregiver for his mother, and then started being the caregiver for his uncle. And then, he and her slept together like once or something. And then he was like initially trying to treat her like he treats all his other kind of women on the side, just kind of like, okay, like, I'll give you this little gift, and then like we can be like together, like here and there. But he would kind of put his spin on it, like, okay, like the ball's in my court, kind of like I'm calling the shots. But then she ended up kind of being like, like, this is like a one-time thing, and she kind of shut him down, and saying that he's like too high maintenance, and like, he's a good guy, but she didn't really want to be involved with him. And then he goes to his therapist, and he starts making the story opposite, saying like, oh, like, poor girl, like, I kind of broke her heart, like, disappointed her. And then he's like, why am I bullshitting? Like, she totally denied me, and she's the one who totally was like, okay, this was a one-time thing, and like, let's just call it what it is. And that kind of thing. So I would say I try not to, but I do feel myself that I would maybe tend to go down that kind of route of like, oh yeah, like I was the more like powerful one, or the more right one, or the more correct one, or the one, without fault, or make myself look better, versus in like a situation, or if I'm like retelling a situation to like a friend or something, I do kind of have that inclination. It's an ego thing, it totally is. But I noticed the more I slow down, so if I'm not like using cannabis, and I'm not drinking alcohol, and I'm not very caffeinated, I do notice that it's easier for me to kind of like catch myself and be like, yo, like, slow down what you're saying. Like, this isn't like completely accurate. But, there is something in that it's like, it does also get kind of like attached to maybe like to my self-esteem a little bit too. Because then I'm like, it's easier for me to see like all these things that maybe didn't go right or didn't go well, and my role in things like not being perfect. And then, like, those are the kind of things I kind of get down on myself about, like you need to kind of get it into shape, kind of thing. But I'm aware of it, and I'm noticing it. But I also notice, like, the more I try to work on it, the harder it gets to kind of be in an accepting place about it. So I would say that kind of contributes to like what I'm saying, like, okay, I do get like negative about stuff. That's the kind of stuff I get negative about, or I'm just like like down on myself about like things that just naturally just don't go the way that I would prefer. And all those kind of attached pieces to it, right? And then there's also there's also all right. I stopped to eat breakfast. Had some vegan bacon. Didn't eat it all because it's not Morningstar. It's another brand. I'm just trying it. I'm not really too into it. Try not to waste it, but it's not really my thing. Ate some eggs, and I have a little bowl of watermelon. That's literally the random type of stuff that I eat. It's like a later brunch, and like I said, I've been having this bulletproof coffee since 7 something this morning, sipping on it. So anyways, but yeah, with relationships, it's not just, okay, what do I get from this other person, right? It's like I have a role, they have a role. We're all connected to other people in our lives currently. That's going to play a role. We all have our own pasts of connections with other people and experiences in our life in the past and experiences in our life in the present. That plays a role. And all these things are moving and changing second by second, that plays a role. So you see things like people who might be friends and then they become lovers, or people who were friends and then they become distant, or people who were family members, or who, they remain blood relatives, but they were in touch and then they lose touch, or people who were never really in contact and then they got back in contact. And you see things like, people, just splitting towards different directions, like they're not really on the same path. A lot of this takes a lot of communication. But then, just even focusing on like how I was saying, like there's like the ego part that, always wants to defend us, to make us look better, to make us seem better, to shine a positive light on us, which in a way is good, but I think it's important to pay attention to where the ego comes in, and then just taking it for what it is. It's like, okay, if my ego is making me want to like make me seem more, financially successful than I am, or more successful in relationships than I am, or make it seem like I come from like a better family dynamic than I do, or from, like just those types of things that we, try not to really put on the surface, it kind of also tells us kind of what we value about ourselves, about what others see in us, about just kind of like even like sensitive areas in our life of things that maybe we have insecurities about, but things like that, like it kind of tells us like what we're willing to kind of try to, I don't know if you would say put up a fight for, but put a what we're willing to kind of share with people or show to people, versus what we're willing to just like hold on to and not really reveal to people. And then that's one extreme with the negative. It can go like into like darker places too, that go to like toxic kind of traits and manipulation and abuse and creating trauma for people and things like that. Like it can go toward that, can lead to like a really like extreme negative. I think most people aren't on that extreme, but those of us who have come across or been connected to people who do have those extremes, it definitely leaves an impact, even if it's temporary, even if it's in passing, even if it's some guy on the freeway who flips you off and then you flip him back off and then he pulls out a gun, like something like that, where it's just like, oh my gosh, like some people are just like wild out there. But I think that's not the majority of people. I think the majority of people kind of have this kind of defensiveness about them, where they're either like focused on other people judging them, kind of that kind of thing. Let's turn the camera towards somebody else and put them on the spot, or be sarcastic and create a little bit of a jab. Just be like, okay, I'm gonna get a little jab in at this person in this situation. It makes me feel a little bit better, and it keeps them at a bit of a distance. That's kind of what sarcasm is, in my opinion. Anyways, sarcasm is just like something that kind of you're not physically pushing somebody away, but you're kind of like saying it's a joke or acting like it's a joke, but kind of playing on some kind of sensitive issue that somebody's bringing up, or that somebody's talking about, and kind of making them feel a little bit badly about it. And then there's the other side, which is more positive. I would say for most people, the positive is harder to get to, especially when it's like a consistency. It's harder to get to. So, I think it's harder to get to, honestly. And a lot of times the negativity sticks. It's not even our own negativity. Like, a lot of times it's just like a lot of built up stuff from almost like voices of other people. It's kind of like messages we've received from other people that we've internalized about ourselves, or perceptions that we think other people have of us based on how we feel or think about ourselves. That also will impact how we think other people perceive us. So there's always this kind of constant like noticing what's actually happening and interpreting it a certain way, but the lens that we interpret things through is always kind of different depending on kind of how we feel about ourselves too. And then there's this positive side that's like, seeing the positive side of ourselves. Like, people tell me, that I'm able to connect with other people. That's one thing that, I've had supervisors, bosses, clients, friends, family. People tell me that I'm able to connect to other people, that I'm not judgmental about things, that I don't react in a certain way when people are telling me certain things. I react in a way that people don't feel like I'm judging them, and then I react in a way that people feel like they can kind of talk about stuff. And I mean, I don't know if I really judge people. Like, I would say, I mean, everybody does judge people, but I would say I don't really place a lot of stock in those judgments. It's more like I'm irritated that this person does this thing, or says this thing, or has these patterns, or gets on my nerves about this or that. That's more so what it is more like I notice I get irritated about it. And then I also have, like, I'll try to take like hints. So for example, Like, I'm a very, like, friendly person, even though I'm not, like, maybe, like, giddy, but, like, I'm friendly. Like, I usually reach out to people. I know it's awkward. There are always, like, these awkward times, when you've lost connection with people, and then, I'm the person that'll just be like, I don't care if I haven't talked to you for, like, a year and a half. If I want to hit you up, I'm going to hit you up and just say what's up, and if you want to hang, let's hang. Like, I don't mind, like, rekindling things or reconnecting with people, especially when it's like, okay, we didn't break up, we weren't, like, not friends anymore, we just kind of, happened to not see each other for a while, or talk, or just lost contact. So for me, it can be kind of hard to tell, like, when somebody else is, like, creating a distance because I'm getting on their nerves, or when somebody just kind of needs, like, maybe a little bit more space from their end of things, versus when, somebody maybe doesn't need more space, but they're just going through things on their own end. I was trying to record this early because, I have a whole lot more privacy in the mornings, but I feel like, this house is, like, super quiet, and I'm no longer fully alone in the wakefulness part of this day. Other people are awake now, so that's why I'm talking, like, super quiet. But yeah, that's kind of how I sense things. How I sense things to be. How I sense things would go. I'm kind of, like, I don't know. I really don't know if that's judgment, if I do get, like, irritated about things. I just get a little irritated, a little impatient, with people just not doing things the way that I would want them to do it. Like, but I don't know if I really judge everybody. Like, there are a couple people in my life that I would say I'm, like, especially people who have been, like, have, like, an abusive track record, I'll put it that way. And especially if it's not just towards myself, like, those types of people, I tend to kind of just think, they just don't care, or they're not aware, or, they just don't have it together enough that they can't, like, control themselves. Like, that's kind of where I would say I probably do judge people. And then, like I was saying, like, if people are kind of like I have a pretty social life, so I kind of see, like, if people aren't really, like, texting, responding, messaging, or making plans together, or keeping the plans that they make, I kind of tend to take that as, like, okay, maybe they need a break, or maybe they like, maybe they need a break. Sorry, my throat's a little weird right now. Maybe they need a break, or maybe they, just don't really want to talk in depth at this moment. And so I'm kind of learning to, like, table it and just be like, all right, let me give them a break. And, for, like, a month or whatever, like, I'll wait till they respond. Because I know people have other stuff going on in their lives, and I can be a little excessive with the excitement that I put towards, messaging people or calling them or whatever. Like, if I want to talk to you, I'm going to talk to you, right? Like, that's just kind of how I am. Like, I'm not too interested in, like, my ego isn't too wrapped, well, it is a little wrapped up in it, but it's not too wrapped up in these kind of weird social kind of things, such as, like I mentioned, like the distance, that happens just naturally, how people have a distance after some time, like, and then they lose connection. I don't really have too much of my ego wrapped up in like, ooh, this is awkward to reach back out. I developed this more during the Rona. I developed that way more during the Rona because I noticed there are people between different cities that I didn't get to see as much, that I didn't get to speak with as much, people moving all over the place. And it's like, dude, if I want to keep in touch with these people, I'm going to have to just do it. Without using the excuse of, oh, it's been too long, or, oh, they live too far, or, oh, it's like, if I want to be in touch, I'll be in touch. Like, why should I make it so awkward? Especially if, like, yeah, if we didn't have a falling out, we weren't arguing, nothing odd happened, they weren't kind of making an exit, like, okay, we're not going to talk anymore kind of thing, then I kind of don't see a reason not to reach out. And I figure if they don't want to communicate anymore, if I reach out and it's way later, then they just won't respond, and that's fine. I mean, do I get offended by it, or do I get a little like, oh, I wish, that would be nice if we didn't lose touch? Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, I definitely do, I definitely will feel that way. I'll definitely feel like, oh, like, especially when people just like, not necessarily ghosting, but like I would say, I have somebody that I was talking to for quite a length of time, quite deeply for a while, especially during the Rona. And the last time we met was like my birthday, last year in 2021. I had a birthday party and we hung out, and then they kind of hung around town, and they were still there the next day, but I just wasn't like feeling like hanging around. Like, I just wanted to relax because it was the weekend, and I was like, I don't really feel social, and I mean, we had already hung out. The plan was to hang out for the birthday. I don't think we'd made solid plans that next day. We talked a little bit the next couple days after that, and then, I never really heard from them again. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be in their part of the city at all, so why even, like, talk to them? So they stopped talking to me, I stopped talking to them. We were kind of more like, we would talk when we were in each other's cities, and it was usually me going towards their city because my family lived in the same city. So it was usually me going up there and to visit family, and then I'd kind of like visit other people, and they were one of the people, and then it just kind of fell off. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna be seeing them anymore in person because of all the lockdowns and stuff, so why don't I just, not hit them up, because they didn't seem too engaged the last couple times we talked, and they were like, they started working on this new career path all of a sudden, which they wanted to do, and reaching some of their goals. And I feel like they had a good experience. They had a fun experience when we were all hanging out. It wasn't like the most social of experiences. We were doing karaoke, and so, it's not like there was a lot of talking. Like, we talked a little bit after, and then everybody went home. I just wanted it to be a quick wham bam kind of like hour or two kind of hang out, not really like a whole like thing. And so, yeah, I mean, And then I hit him up way later, like probably like April of this year, I guess. So, yeah, I think we got along, but also this person also, doesn't really have a history of having like long-term friendships or long-term family relationships. Like, even the whole time, I knew this person for like years, and the whole time we were talking and hanging out and being together and stuff, like, they never really talked to anybody else too much. So I know that they kind of weren't really socially, too involved, and so it didn't really surprise me that they weren't really trying to respond. And I don't think things went badly. I just think they just moved on, and I'm like, okay, like, you have your right, to move on, like, whatever. Like, we weren't arguing, we weren't fighting. The last time we saw each other, we were partying and had a good time and confirmed it was a good time. And that was that, So I don't really see a need to make too much out of things, even if there is like maybe some slight amount of disappointment involved. When that type of thing comes up, it's like, okay, like, I'm not gonna make it like something that it's not. I really try. That's what I've been trying to do, is to not make things into something that they're not. And then, it's like, we weren't a couple, we weren't engaged, we weren't besties. We talked regularly, and the Rona, stages of the last couple years kind of helped us to talk more, because it's like we were both kind of in our own isolated cities, like 100 miles from each other, and like neither one of us was really talking to anybody in person, so we were all talking to each other online. And so, just things like that, like, those types of things are easy to have the ego get into it and be like, oh, like, you did something wrong, or they, I need to be mad at them for like wronging me for not responding or whatever. Like, my mind does kind of want to go there, but at the same time, it's like, things kind of ended amicably. Sometimes people don't want to tell you that they don't want to talk to you. And, sometimes there's not really a whole lot of depth to conversations too. And people have kids and they move on and they've got family they're caring for and other stuff in their lives and career paths that they're trying to focus on and financial stuff and like so much stuff that it's like, our lives move so fast these days that it's like you can't really blame anybody for, handling their own stuff, and then there's so I would say, like, it can be hard for me to see that I'm good at connecting with people, but these are just the things that people have told me. What I notice is the times when I'm too direct, or the times when I say something a little insensitive, or I'm like, ooh, that was like insensitive. And I remember that stuff, right? So I remember this situation at work, for example. We used to have these really stressful meetings where, the people leading the meetings were super high strung and we're already overworked. This was like a 2-hour meeting at the start of our shift every Thursday. And Thursdays we would start at noon. We would work noon till 8. So we started our meeting at noon. And, so you're already up all morning, and then you start work in the middle of the day, and then it just goes, and you just start working, basically. And, the meeting was intense. We'd have different categories of what we had to discuss. The first things we would discuss were the intakes, and then the next thing we would discuss was what's called the high-risk list. So when we discussed the assessments of that week, the intakes, different people got assigned to different clients then. And then when we discussed the high risk list, we followed up on the whole entire high risk list of people who either didn't get contacted or had hospitalizations or any kind of admissions for behavioral health crises or physical health problems or arrests or anything like that. Like we would have like a whole thing, a whole list of people. Then we would put our own people on the board and we just put the names on there, and then we just go through the list. And there were also people documenting the notes in the meeting, and then you'd have to present. So you'd have a lot of clients you'd have to give a presentation about. And then there's like a whole lot of clinical staff in this room, and everybody would have, not everybody had to say something, but people, if they had something they needed to say, like a recommendation for treatment or a follow-up kind of question or whatever, they would talk about it. And then, that meeting would get really stressful, just because of the intensity. I mean, we weren't talking about positive things. We were never talking about like, oh, this person found work, or oh, that person did this or that. That was like really good. We were just talking about trauma and depression and suicide and, substance relapses and just like a lot of intense topics with people that we were working with as clients, and as well as, how we as staff were kind of dealing with it. And we would just focus on that. And that's not a good way to like start your shift. But most of us hated these meetings. I would just get up and leave like once or twice. Like mid-meeting, I would always just get up and like walk around. I'd walk around inside the building, go in the bathroom, go get a drink of water or make some tea. I'd go outside, get some fresh air, walk around the building outside, and come back in. I'd be gone for I'd take like a good 10-15 minute break every single meeting, just for my own, I needed that break. And so I would do that every single meeting. And then, the meeting went until like 2:00, pretty much, maybe even a little longer. And then I remember I had a group that was like 3 to 5 or 3:30 to 5 or something like that. Can't remember what I did after the meeting, but anyways, one time during this meeting, we were presenting one of my clients, and I was saying how like this client was pregnant and tested positive for meth use and was having meth, stimulant dependence, issues, and using meth while pregnant, using meth in the early newborn stages, once the baby was born, and had a traumatic experience that when the baby was born, because of the meth use, the client's baby was not given to the client. The client's baby was taken into the system pretty much as a newborn, and this was creating a lot of trauma and depression for the client, and it was contributing to the relapses. That was kind of my formulation of the situation. So I'm explaining this situation. The baby was fine. The baby was healthy. Everything was good with the baby. The client wasn't super unhealthy or anything, physically anyways. It's just they were working on the substance issue. And one of my friends, who's also a coworker, made a comment about like that client's use, about like kind of like, I can't believe that client's using drugs while they had a baby or whatever. And like I got offended. Like I got a little offended because like if you're the therapist of somebody who you know is doing something like that, it's a hard place to be. Because, like, you know, for me anyways, I take on a lot of when they don't do well or when they're not succeeding. I'm like, well, what is it that I'm not able to do to help them better so that they're actually like progressing with their sobriety and like getting closer to meeting all the steps to get their kid back and all this kind of stuff. Like, I felt kind of like somewhat responsible, so that kind of contributed to me responding, saying like, well, clearly, I worded it like this. I was like, well, clearly she's depressed, you know, and like, but I said it kind of like that, you know, like, well, clearly she's depressed, you know, and like, it was like, I think a lot of people were kind of taken aback by that, and I could tell by her response that like she felt bad, like I made her feel bad, and other people weren't really responding. And or I mean, it wasn't like a long, like drawn out dramatic thing, but like, you know, I don't tend to get that that way during work, and so I was like, ooh, like I need to like back off. And I do remember when I was done presenting all my cases, I kind of got up and left, because I needed a break, and I was like, I feel like I need a break, you know, because it was also the buildup of the intensity in the room. So like things like that, that's the kind of stuff I tend to remember. And I didn't verbally like apologize. I thought about it. I was like, I noticed it right away that I came across kind of direct, and I was wrong in that. You know, I shouldn't have been like rude or insensitive about that staff's comment. And they are a dear friend of mine. It's not like I dislike them at all, but I also was like, you know, that kind of wasn't really the best way to say that, but I don't really know. Like, I think other people felt that I was, yeah, it was definitely insensitive. It was too direct and it was insensitive. So, you know, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's like we're only human, right? We're all just human beings, and, you know, we're not going to do everything perfectly every single time. But, I mean, a lot of that kind of stuff definitely contributes to questioning, like, okay, like, if people say that I'm good at connecting with other people, why am I doing stuff like that, you know? But I think you can do both. You can be good at something and have like a natural inclination and skill towards something, and also still fuck it up on occasion, you know? Like, it doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect at it every time, right? But it's hard to like really gauge. So that would be one thing. Yeah, I mean, judgment is one of those things that like it's hard to really care. Like, judgment, I feel like with judgment, as long as it doesn't come across as like obviously noticeable that you're judging somebody and making them feel bad, then or gossiping and things like that, then I think you're okay. You know, I think from that point it's like you're okay. And then so there's that, and then there's I mean, I can be patient, and I am kind of weird with friends, I'd say. Like, I don't really look at people as like, oh, this person's nerdy, or this person's ugly or unattractive, or, you know, fat, or, you know, whatever, you know, like, I mean, yeah, I notice these things, and I notice that other people might care about that stuff, but I don't know, there's something about me that I just don't care, you know? I'm just like, if I want to hang out with you, I'm going to hang out with you. And if I need a break from you, I need a break from you, you know? Like, but I'm usually, unless somebody is consistently being like a toxic force in my life, I usually am not trying to cut them off. And usually when I cut people off, it's a very subtle thing. I just block them in my phone, and then I don't get their messages. I don't have to hear from them. If they try to contact me, I never get back in touch. It's not really like a big thing. I don't like blow it up or anything. But yeah, so I say all these kind of things to say that, when it comes to kind of like relationships, relationship building, dating, things like that, a lot of the way that we think about ourselves, the positives and the negatives, and then how we think other people perceive us, a lot of that is going to be, contributing to how we act. So if we're trying to meet somebody, right? Meet someone, date someone, go out with someone, form a relationship, early stages with somebody. We have to kind of keep a lot of these things in check and see kind of not getting so excited or nervous to the point that you're not focused on what's actually happening moment to moment. Because it can be easy to be like, okay, do they like me? Are their mannerisms showing that they like me? Are they, talking to me like they like me? Are they messaging me back like they like me? And then if there's not a lot of strong communication, a lot of times we can read into things and think, okay, they didn't contact me because they don't like me, or they didn't respond because they don't like me, or they're not responding because I'm annoying them, or trying to gauge what's actually happening versus talking about what you see happening that you don't really fully understand. I think it's worth a discussion and, really studying people, not analyzing to judge them. That's not the same thing as what I'm trying to say, but really studying people, right? For example, this isn't going to be a very good example, I can tell, but if you get a puppy, right? A little baby puppy, a newborn animal, pet, that hasn't been fully trained or anything. You study the animal, right? You're kind of you're not actively sitting there taking notes, but you notice kind of okay, in the morning when I wake up, the dog comes and notices I'm up and starts scratching on my bedroom door. When it starts jumping around and barking in the mornings, it means that it's excited, thinking that I'm going to feed it, and it's probably hungry, so I'm going to put out water and food for the dog. And when I'm, sleeping, if it's crying at my door, that means that it wants to come inside because I'm in there. And, if, you just notice the behaviors that it does and kind of what it means, right? You're kind of attuned to it. You kind of are in tune with what's actually happening. But I think when it comes to, that's a simplistic example because we can't really talk back to the animal and have a full-on conversation with it. So you can't just be oh, are you, is this the food you want preferred to that one, or what, there's no back and forth conversation like that. It's a lot of just reading the behaviors, reading the reactions, and kind of interpreting what that means. That's kind of how we tend to treat a lot of relationship things. But the thing is, with humans, we're so complex that there are a lot more aspects to us than food, water, sleeping, loneliness, or, companionship. I feel like animals have complexities too, but I feel like those are kind of major areas for them, and there aren't really a whole lot of other major areas, like not like humans, where it's like, you have all these like different areas of like, your physical, well, yeah, there's a lot of overlap, but you have your physical health, your mental health, your finances, your sleep schedules, your eating habits, your exercise patterns, your if you have like spirituality or something meaningful towards your life, and hobbies and downtime, and all those kinds of things. There's so many different categories that we focus on that a puppy isn't going to really be focused on, who's paying the bills, or are we saving enough, or contributing to retirement. Like, animals don't really, of course, what we do with it does affect the pet, but what I'm trying to say is, animals aren't thinking about that kind of stuff. Humans in the Western society, we think about this stuff. In mainstream Western culture, we think about these types of things. And so if you think about all those different categories, and I missed a lot of them, if you think about all those different types of categories contributing to our lives, all that kind of stuff contributes to social situations, all that kind of stuff contributes to relationships and dating and all kinds of stuff. And so to try to predict why a person's reacting the way they're reacting may be directly related to you. It may not be directly related to you. It may be related to some old thing from some other situation that has like nothing to do with what you're even talking about in the moment. So whatever that looks like. And then yeah, so just perception is always in a way kind of not fully accurate. I mean, you can get pretty accurate with it, but I think a lot of times what it tends to be lacking is people don't want to bring it up, right? Nobody wants to bring up the elephant in the room, and it doesn't even have to be an elephant. It can be something smaller than an elephant, but nobody wants to like shine light on some weird insecurity, like, why aren't you texting me back? Why aren't you, if I talk to you on a dating app, why aren't you responding? Or why, after we met the first time, why didn't you answer? Or why didn't we make plans again? Or, a lot of times these things, it's implied. I mean, it is good to, socially notice things, and it can be implied that a person is not interested. So I'm not saying like just because somebody acts what commonly seems like they wouldn't be interested, and if one starts to act in this way like they might not be interested, just ignore it because you might be wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's just a really complex situation, and without communicating earlier on, it's hard to really know what a person is really looking for. A lot of people tend to be pretty superficial about things, meaning, I noticed what's common is people like to work, they like to party, and they like to tune out. That's what I commonly notice. What I mean is people wake up, they don't really do anything for themselves in the morning. For the most part, people tend to wake up and just be like, okay, gotta go about my day. It's common in, Western culture for people to have an attitude towards not wanting to work, as in they don't like their job and they wish that they could just sleep in and not have to wake up early to work, or wish that they could not have to work or not have to deal with the things that they have to deal with at work, meaning that basically people aren't really usually too fulfilled by their work. They wake up, they just go do that for 8 hours or however long per day. Then they come home and, eat and watch TV. Whether that's sports, movies, whatever common series are on. A lot of people, especially people I work with, a lot of people don't really go out even on weekends. They sit home, they watch a lot of Netflix and stuff. And this is single people, couples, a lot of different people. There are people who have hobbies, who have interests. A lot of people don't have hobbies and interests. And then, they sleep whenever they sleep, eat whatever they eat. If they exercise, they exercise. And a lot of people don't feel like they have like a fulfilling routine, and they want a person in their life, a partner, where they're compatible, get along, have a lot of the same values, maybe the same world perspective, even if there are some cultural differences and things, and want to make a life work with somebody. But I don't know if people really are commonly looking at things like all these different dynamics in their relationships, right? And then I'm not sure either if people, if they're looking at it, or if they even care, or if they are comfortable with it. Like, it's kind of hard to do. It's hard to sit and think about this stuff because it's not comfortable and it's not fun. It doesn't feel good, way easier to ignore. But then a lot of times people are looking for someone to fulfill something in their life, right? And not really thinking too much about what is someone else giving. What is someone else getting from you? Like, what am I getting from them, but what am I giving to them? Like, what are they getting from me? A lot of times people want a lot from somebody, or notice the benefits that they get from somebody, and then they notice all these other negative things that they get when they're with somebody. But I don't know if a lot of people deeply think into it on these kind of levels. And to me, this isn't even the deepest of levels to think on things. This is just below the surface. This is just below the surface level. Go to work 8 hours, pay your bills, watch TV, go to bed, eat healthy and exercise, have some hobbies, and have a well-rounded kind of day. That's kind of like a surface level kind of situation. And then underneath that, that's where all this stuff comes in my opinion. This is still kind of just underneath the surface. There's not a lot of depth to it. There's not a lot of working on things. It's just more like observing, and then trying to even start ideas around what the communication with certain things would even look like, what trustworthiness would even look like if you're even communicating on these things, what safe spaces would look like if you're communicating about these types of things, because you kind of need that to be able to properly work on anything. to be able to properly, develop yourself. And then also just, I'm blanking on this. I think it comes from CBT and psychology. I could be wrong, but there's a certain point where people start challenging their internal belief systems, their core beliefs about themselves. Like, what does this mean about me when I have this thought or this emotion? What does it mean about me? Like, where is it coming from? And then, putting a percentage towards the accuracy that you really think and see, like the actual evidence. So for example, if I'm thinking a certain way, what is the evidence for that? So if I'm thinking I'm too direct with people, what is the evidence? People have told me that I am. My mom has told me that I am. I've seen it in myself. I've noticed it in other people's reactions. But also, it's like, I notice I'm nice enough that it doesn't cause conflict between me and others. It doesn't cause people to not want to talk to me. It doesn't cause people to avoid me. It doesn't cause people to not want to talk to me. It doesn't cause people to, not want to be friends. It's a flaw that I have, and I think that people still are able to accept me with it, even though I don't like it about myself. And I would rather that I wasn't doing it, because I'm not like really trying to hurt people's feelings and stuff. It's just sometimes I have an emotional reaction to something and it comes out as pretty direct. And I'm not really careful about how I'm, talking about something. I'm just like saying it without concern for somebody else's feelings. I'm just like saying, like, point blank, this is how it is. But I don't think it really impacts people feeling like they can like talk to me or like anything. Like, I think it just makes it makes for a complex it's just a part of the complexity of things. I'm not saying I'm not trying to change it or that I'm not working on it, because I am, but it's just, there's evidence for it. It's not like I'm just like thinking, oh, this might be what's happening. It's like, no, it happens from time to time. It's definitely happening less, but it does still happen. And it's probably happening less because I'm not interacting with people as much. And when I am interacting, like I said, I pay attention to, my stress levels, my sleep levels, my irritability levels, and if I have like any kind of substances in my system, all those kind of things are going to contribute to how I'm actually like talking, what I'm in tune with, what I'm out of tune with, what I'm just checked out from. So that's one level. Really the evidence, I think. And that's just one example of one thing. Like, sometimes people think, that they're, something I hear commonly is usually physical appearance type things, which really surprises me. I think some people think they're unattractive because of their weight. Some people think they're too fat. Some people think they're too skinny. And I wouldn't say that they're not overweight or that they're not thin. But I wouldn't say that. I mean, the people I've heard this from, I wouldn't say that they're not attractive people. Like, I think they're attractive people, even with their weight the way that it is. And I'm sure other people think that too. I mean, I'm talking about some people who are even like married, and I'm like, well, how do you think that? I mean, you have a spouse, somebody who married you when you look the way that you already were looking. It's like they were clearly attracted to you, having kids together and stuff like that. Like, clearly they find you attractive. Or like going out on dates and like getting like new, involved with like a new relationship. It's like, okay, well, clearly somebody's interested, right? Because they were interested then. So like, how does that even come into play? Like, with people saying that they're too fat, too thin. I've heard people say that they're too short. Like, I know some guys who are, not a lot of guys, but I know some guys who are like much shorter than the majority of people that I know, and then some guys that are like not too short. Like, they're not like way shorter, but they're like not 6 feet tall. They're probably closer to like 5'4", 5'5". And for a guy, a lot of times they think, okay, I'm too short. That's short in their opinion. And so, I've seen that with the height thing, with the weight thing, or people thinking that, they just don't look good. But I don't really know. I mean, like, I haven't really come across that, honestly. Like, when I hear these people say these things to me, and I'm like, really? Like, I don't see you that way. And I'm not even just trying to be nice. Like, I really just don't see them at, like, yeah, not all of us are going to be like Tyra Banks, Beyonce supermodels, like, we're not all going to look like that. We're not all going to look like Channing Tatum. We're not all going to look like freaking whoever the heck people are like in love with these days. We're not all going to look like these people. Yeah, there are people that are exceptionally good looking, but I think people underestimate how good they look sometimes. And I think, like, I'm trying to think if I have any friends that I don't like the way that they look. I would say, I don't know that many people who I don't like how they look. And I know quite a lot of people, and I can't think of that many. And a lot of times, I mean, I'm not saying they're ugly. I'm just saying, to me, I don't find them maybe like attractive, but other people have found them attractive. And then, when it also comes to personality, some of those people who might not have like, some better looks, they might not have really great looks. Their personality might be really great. So I've noticed that too, that, there might be people that I see that I'm like, and who am I to say who's attractive or not? Like, what does it matter? Like, I don't think I'm like the most physically attractive person either. So, I'm not really one to talk. What do I know? I know I'm not like a model or anything, but, I would say that I can't say that I've never had anybody approach me And so that already is like, okay, like, there might be something that's appealing to some people. But I don't really know what it is. Like, nobody's really told me like what it was. I don't know. I tend to have a bit of a boyish charm to me, but that's just kind of how it is. I would say I'm not a really mask person. I'm kind of a little in the middle of the androgyny type of, like, I'm not really into like super femme stuff, but you're not going to see me really wearing like a suit and a tie, but I also don't like dresses. So it's like I'm not really on either end. I tend to wear the clothes that I wear, and I kind of just do my own style of things. Like, I'm not really too concerned about everybody else. But yeah, I really like thinking about things in this type of a way, but I just to try to help people with it, because I know, like, myself included, everybody dealing with this damn pandemic, and then socially, I think it really took a toll on a lot of people. I think I came out of things feeling kind of like a little socially inept compared to before. Like, I'm like, I don't know where it comes from, but I'm a lot more insecure about a lot of things that I never had time to really think about, that I got insecure about during this pandy, as people call it, the pandy. I got more insecure about some things that, especially when it comes to like gaining weight or being less physically fit, and like, I was gray hair, and it's like, what the hell? Like, I look like way older than I did. I look like I've aged like 5 to 10 years. And I feel like I have too. It's just like, it just like sped up, a lot of things for me. But I think also, like, I was able to kind of think things through a lot more because I had so much time, because I wasn't partying all my free time. I wasn't doing anything. I was just like doing all this like introspective type of stuff. So I think that's one of the challenging things, is to really look at the evidence for things. It's like, if people think that they're not attractive, but then other people have been attracted to them, like, maybe not every person is attracted to you. That can't happen. That's not like normal, that every single person you know or meet is going to have an attraction to you. But then so you can also have, when you think about evidence, because we perceive things in a certain way, because we perceive, okay, this person doesn't like me, or these people think I'm weird, or that person might find me unattractive, we react differently than we would with people who we know like us, or if somebody has a crush on you, or if somebody's interested in you, or finds you interesting or friendly or nice, and has said positive things towards you. You act differently around those people than you act around people who have maybe ridiculed you in the past, or made fun of you in the past, or made some kind of remark about like your clothing or your looks or whatever the heck. Like, if you're around those people, you're going to react in a less secure, less confident way. And that almost like creates this cycle of like, now you're going to seem maybe less attractive because you feel like you're less attractive. And so that is another headspace that's all hard to get out of. But it's like, when you feel like you're not like in a cocky way, but like when you feel the same kind of feeling that you feel when you're around people that you like, around people that you know like you, people who might look up to you for certain values that they see that you have, people who might or you know, people who see you as like friendly, people who think of you as nice and friends and trustworthy, confidant type of person. You're gonna act really, you know, you're not gonna think about like, what is this person thinking about me? Like, did I say something weird again? Like, did I do that weird thing? Like, are they like looking at me because I have like a bald spot? Are they looking at me because of like, is my hair weird? Did I not dress properly? Like, are my clothes too old? Do I not look fashionable? Like, you're not gonna care about all that. You're just gonna be with your buddies and your homies and like, or with your date or whatever, and just like hanging out. You're not gonna think about all the bullshit that, you know, other people have said. You know, that's really not going to be in your mind too much. But it's hard to take that kind of energy into a space where you either don't know anybody, or you don't know these people yet, or they've done or said something negative. And so if you're trying to go towards something new where you don't really know, it could work in your favor to kind of harness that energy from those positive relationships and positive experiences, and try to like bring that with you into that situation, bring that energy with you, that type of confidence, or even comfort if it's not even fully confidence, and just try to like get your head into a space like that. And I know it's possible to do that, because like I've had experience with things like public speaking. Everybody hates public speaking. I hate public speaking. Everybody hates being on the spot in public speaking and all this kind of stuff. So I've also been there where it's like I've noticed when I've given, like, I used to do a lot of presentations for work and school, and you know, I'm in a field where we present a lot verbally. You're on stage, you're on, you know, the light is on you, and you're talking about either your research or your clients, or you know, your experiences or whatever. You're talking a lot in the field that I'm in. And so you do have to speak publicly a lot. And some days you notice like I just can't even like hardly form proper sentences. Other days you notice I have a lot to say and I'm not really here to listen. And you know, and other days you're just like right on point where you need to be. And some days you just are flopping. And so I've had the full spectrum of experiences, but I've noticed the problem is when you are tired or exhausted or in a negative headspace, or your self-esteem is feeling low. And I want to say one thing about self-esteem is that people don't really consider that self-esteem fluctuates a lot. It's not like a stagnant thing. And I'm noticing that more and more. It's not like a stagnant thing. Like my self-esteem is low, and then it's going to be low for like months until I build it up. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can have low self-esteem in the morning and then drink a little bit of coffee and do a little journaling and get, you know, listen to some positive podcasts or something to get your mind in a different way of thinking, and your self-esteem can completely change within minutes, hours, within the day. But it might be underlying almost consistently negative self-esteem. You might notice that, okay, like it takes me effort to get to a higher self-esteem, but you can get there though, which is the thing that I think a lot of people don't notice, and that I didn't notice too, that like you can pump yourself up. And I noticed this by like I was saying, like giving presentations and stuff. Sometimes it's the headspace you put yourself in. If it's not your sleep energy or just like your emotional energy for the day, because sometimes we just run out of energy. Sometimes you're just not feeling social. Sometimes you're just having something like that. But if it's not something like that happening, a lot of times you can definitely have an experience where you're totally, you know, not not doing a good presentation and then turn it around during the presentation, during the public speaking. You can turn it around and make it like lighter. A lot of it's how you feel when you're presenting. And it's subtle, but like you'll notice where your head goes. Your head is kind of like, these people are like, the energy that the crowd or the audience gives, you feed off of that energy because you're interpreting it, right? So if you've ever been on a stage, either at a church giving a prayer, or at a church giving a speech, or at a school giving a presentation about some book report or something, or whatever, at work talking about, some situation, and you're the one on the spot kind of talking, and if it's not like a disciplinary thing and you're just like talking, just as it would be just like a casual part of that meeting of whatever type of meeting that is where you're talking, you can notice that, when you see people like not engaged, not looking, not laughing, not, not laughing like jeering at you, but like laughing like, if you're telling little like jokes and people aren't really smiling or laughing about it, or not, I don't know, if people are just like not like engaging in the way that you prefer, that's gonna, a lot of times, it doesn't have to, but that's gonna impact how you present to people, right? And it's the same way in like dating and in relationships and things. Like if you start like internally taking on the negative that you notice, like that people aren't looking at you, that people aren't engaging with you, that people seem bored, and you're like, oh man, this is a rough presentation, rough crowd, like people are judging me, this sucks, like I just want to get it over with, I'm messing up, I'm gonna get a bad grade. And if all that's kind of in the back of your mind, it's gonna be hard to like relax and unwind. But then you can even notice in a presentation, the second you kind of like connect, there's a way that you can kind of like connect with the crowd and engage them. A little icebreaker, a little joke, it depends on the setting. You can't just be like cracking jokes all the time. Like if you're at a funeral giving a speech or something, you can't just be like joking. But I mean, there's certain settings where it's appropriate to be just like, not like knock jokes, but whatever's appropriate for the situation. You can say things in a way that kind of, notice gets people kind of like relaxed a little bit more. And then you relax a little bit more because you notice they're relaxed a little bit more. And then it starts flowing a little bit better. And then they start getting a little more interested and engaged in what you're saying. Like the energy that we give off and the energy that other people give, they go back and forth constantly throughout social interactions, right? It's not just like a stagnant thing, like, oh, I'm a nerd and I come up and talk to somebody who I think is attractive and, they get weirded out, Like, they might get weirded out because of their own insecurities. They might, have their own status insecurities. Like, they don't want somebody of a different status talking to them because they get insecure about it. It might not have a thing to do with you. Like, just because you're a nerd and some other popular person is insecure about their popularity doesn't mean that you're screwing it up, right? And so, but I think what happens is a lot of times people take it on and they think, I'm a nerd, so people don't like me. It's like, no, that's not really what it is. I mean, you might be a nerd, but you might be perfectly nice to people. You might be perfectly kind and perfectly, polite, and you're not doing anything that these people don't, it's just, you're not doing anything. It's just they have insecurities that if they're seen talking to you or if they're seen being nice to you, they can't really hold their own in their own social settings. And so they will, you look down on you and make sure other people notice that they're not, being nice to you or, accepting a date invitation from you or something or whatever it may be because you're not popular. That's what it is. It's more that. It's more their insecurity than it is your own insecurity. But, also people pick up on this. If I think I'm a nerd, I'm going to act a certain way, and then I'm going to act in a more insecure, less confident way. Or if a person is a nerd, a lot of times they have this stereotype of being like kind of like smug and like, arrogant in their intelligence, and like talking a lot, in ways that makes people feel intellectually inferior to them. They use their intellect as like a way to kind of like get back at people and like stuff like that, which isn't, whatever. It's neither, I don't think I'm going off the deep end on this, but yeah, that's a lot of kind of what I see. And that's kind of how I would see it, and try to look at things like that. Like, just because I'm doing something and somebody's reacting in a different way, it might be their insecurities too. It might not be you, right? It might be you. It might be you. It might actually be you, but it might not be you, right? It might be them. Because if we can all think of those situations, think of a situation where you reacted oddly to somebody else, right? Where when they maybe asked you out or something, or seemed like attracted to you or something, and you were kind of like, I mean, I've done it before, I've, this isn't like a, like a braggy thing I'm saying at all, because in this situation, I'm not making myself look good in this situation. So this will be my last little story here. But like, yeah, I've been at a celebration where somebody approached me, and they were like saying all these like nice things, and like I remember they were like, it's kind of funny almost, because they were like trying to like unbutton my shirt. I was wearing like a button up, and they were like, I had a tank top under, but they were like unbuttoning my shirt, and they buttoned it down like pretty far, and I was like, this is awkward. But I wasn't not attracted to this person. I didn't find them unattractive in any way. I just was like a little shy, and I was like, what? Why are you like, taking off my shirt? Like, what's going on? So I buttoned it back up, and my excuse for that was like, it's kind of cold, And I was just like, okay. And then, this person kept coming around throughout the night, and like we were like dancing together and like other things, and I could tell they were definitely interested. Like, when we were talking, having a good time, like the whole entire night, this was great, But I was kind of like at a bit of a distance, and then a couple things happened towards the end of it. So, they seemed a little overly drunk, which, it was a pretty big party, so I get it. People are going to be overly drunk. And so, they were very drunk, and I, I was with friends, and we said our goodbyes, because I had just met this person, but I could tell they were interested. And instead of, trying to keep in touch with this person after, or whatever it may be, my friend was like, wow, they were like really into you. And I was like, yeah, like I know, but I was like, but they were like too drunk. So I wasn't like into it. Like, I kind of made it seem like they were too drunk, but that wasn't really the case. They weren't too drunk. I mean, they were by the end of the night, but I mean, who wasn't? But that wasn't the reason why I didn't like pursue it. It was more like I felt a little like nervous about it, and so I just didn't really pursue it. It had nothing to do with the alcohol, but I kind of said that's why. I was like, they kind of were like drinking too much. I'm not really like into people who drink too much or whatever. And I kind of left it at that. And then, also, we were like messaging each other like a little bit after. And then, I messaged them, they messaged me, I messaged them. I think we messaged back and forth a couple times. And I just didn't keep the conversation going, because I assumed they didn't want to text me or whatever. I just assumed that was the end. And then I didn't hit this person up again for like a year later, and I was just like, happy Pride, hope you're okay, because like the world had shut down by that time. And they're like, yeah, I'm okay, like haven't heard from you in a while kind of thing. And like I was like, yeah. And then I just also didn't keep the conversation going, but I'm like, well, clearly they were interested, like, but I just kind of, got nervous about it. And then it was a little awkward with the distance and then the timing and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, easily looking at a situation like that, you could be like, they wouldn't like me because, I'm kind of nerdy, or I'm kind of like this or that, or like whatever. But like this person was clearly like, they were pointing out like, oh, like with your glasses and your kind of like nerdy outfit. Like I kind of had like this like geeky looking like outfit I was wearing. Like I have socks that are like, they're like guys dress socks, but they have like Nintendo on them. And like I wasn't wearing them then, but I was probably wearing something similar. And like just kind of like my geek nerd kind of attire. And they were kind of like, and we were talking about science, and like this person was totally into it. Like they were just like totally into the whole thing. But it would be easy for me to be like, they don't like me because I'm kind of nerdy, or because of how I looked, or kind of how I dressed, or whatever. And they were actively like complimenting me and being nice the whole time. And so there's stuff like that, right? I give that example to say like, you can't really say, that it's the other person isn't interested. They were just doing that for that night or whatever. It's like, they responded, to me. They were still talking to me, but it was hard to kind of get a vibe going. I wasn't really trying to like put myself out there and like make it into something deeper than just like a night out kind of thing. And so that's kind of where I left it. But it's just interesting kind of how we, talk ourselves out of stuff. Convince ourselves of things just based on what other people are saying. Because the accuracy is very flawed. It's very flawed. Perceptions are flawed. I think I've given enough examples, and I hope this was more linear than usual. I was like, let me try to record something early, because usually when I record stuff late, I'm tired, I might get stoned, and might start recording then, and I can't even like linearly, like form ideas. But yeah, I'll probably continue on this topic. I just don't know on what level. I'm going to try to maybe break the topic down more, because this is a long ass overview. But I mean, I'm kind of recording this because like I record these things for myself, but then I also record them for, people who listen to the podcast and stuff, because it's like, I feel like that's the kind of stuff people want to talk about, are relationships. And I noticed that that's the kind of content that people want to talk about. I mean, this is content from a single person. I'm not married. I've never been married. I've never been engaged. Like I mentioned, I date, but I'm not like in a serious thing with anybody right now. I have some ideas of people that I want to, be with, that I'm kind of hesitant to maybe reach out to a little bit lately, but, I don't know. It's not really, like, yeah, I want to reach out to them, but I haven't yet. So I don't know, man. I want to end this recording because I got other stuff I need to be doing. But sorry if there was background noise. Sorry, I'm talking really quietly. There's somebody like in the other room, so I'm trying not to be too obvious about what I'm saying here, because I don't really want them involved in any piece of this conversation. But all right, so that's it for now. All right, thanks for listening.